phone calls, as soon as you guys went live, and you know what, I probably know, I definitely know less than you guys do. I'm just sitting here watching right now. I can see that they just went through an intersection right there. I don't even know the city or the, I understand it's the failure to yield. It does look like they're end of lands. I'm kind of wondering if they're maybe in the Inglewood area. Do you guys know what
We're in
city they're in right now?
Southgate.
Southgate. Well, then I don't know why they're so far. It's kind of so far off there with the helicopter, but you can clearly see that vehicle. It seems like it's slowing down, at least for the intersections right there. What's the agency that's chasing them right now? There we go. The map's up now. At least we know that we're kind of where they're at.
This is we're the CHP that started this pursuit. Currently in Southgate. At one point, it was in Bell Gardens. This driver was driving the wrong way, previously blowing a red light, driving on the sidewalk at one point. Dangerous driving, which has the officers concerned as well. Obviously, our speed at the top is not quite accurate. That would be quite newsworthy if he was going at 116 miles an hour. I'm not sure if that car can get that fast, but we're having challenges with that. But the location at the bottom of the screen is correct as we watch this this vehicle with black and whites behind him.
I can tell you that they're definitely in the Los Angeles area. It might be Southgate, but it's probably going to be more like South Los Angeles right there. California Highway Patrol, they're like, as far, all the law enforcement are fantastic at what they do. But as far as in Southern California, especially in our local areas, if it's the Sheriff's Department, LAPD, California Highway Patrol, they seem to be a little bit more aggressive to bring things to an end when the opportunity arises. A lot of times the officers, and one of the reasons why is the officers that drive those cars for the California Highway Patrol, most of those officers are actually pit maneuver, they're certified. And that's one of the things that, like law enforcement, not all LAPD officers are certified with the pit maneuver. Only certain officers are. And that's the same thing as far as the deputies go. You can see some of those California Highway Patrol going around cars. You see that number of vehicles right there. They want this car. They want, whoever's driving that vehicle right there, they definitely want to bring, they want that guy in custody or woman, that suspect in custody. That is a number of officers that are trailing that vehicle. So there might be a little bit more to this besides just failure to yield. There might be a possibility of a weapon involved.
Okay, here's a potential dangerous maneuver here, going around the vehicle.
That's a number of vehicles, a number of officers right there using that center line. And it is, I'm just looking at the picture as SkyFOX getting much closer now, and we're getting a much better look at what's going on. Busy streets out here, and it's one of those ones that we see this so often. It's almost like pursuit traffic. If anybody else was driving on this road right now, it would be packed and it would be bumper to bumper. This guy looks like he has pretty much the run of the roadway right there. Central, it's a big throughway north and south through through South Los Angeles.
Right.
These officers right there, the speeds, they have to be about 40 miles an hour, and it has to be a situation where there is nothing around that vehicle, so that if they did the pit maneuver, it's not going to spin off into oncoming traffic or anything like that. Look at that, right back into that center lane, coming up on a red light right there. And every time, even watching, this is very rare for me that I've been actually calling something in. But when we're in the helicopter and we see these vehicles just running these red lights, these solid reds, you literally, I say it, and it's the truth. My blood runs cold every time because I'm so worried that somebody is just going to be doing their business and it's going to ruin somebody's day and hopefully not, really injure somebody. Made a turn there on Imperial, so we're definitely in the South Los Angeles area, probably making his way over to the 110. Has he been on any of the freeways yet?
Not while we've been over it, so not sure yet how exactly it started, trying to get more information about that. But we are now on the side streets. This is technically South Los Angeles now that we are in, driving on Imperial Highway. This driver who has blown through a whole lot of red lights, not abiding by any of the traffic laws, originally wanted for failure to yield. Of course, we wonder if there may be more to that than just that. Sometimes that's the initial call, and then it actually is a more complicated backstory. Stu's been talking about the possibility of a pit maneuver. The challenge as we look at these streets, including right now as he's on Imperial, is that there are so many other drivers out and so many other cars parked that the danger of spinning that driver into somebody else remains pretty high right now, even though the speeds are about what you could do for a pit maneuver. Looks like the roads that he's on right now, he or she, just too crowded.
So, yeah, definitely, and that is the number one concern for all law enforcement in any situation in this pursuit. In a pursuit that is probably one of the number one is safety of the public, even the safety of that suspect. They don't want to injure anybody. And in this case right here, you can see that California Cruiser. Look at that, making that move. And you know what? And I always kind of wonder when they make that, are they just kind of doing the, hey, you know what? We are right here. Bring this to an end, or we're going to bring it to an end for you. You know, that was a move that you could have probably, that officer probably could have just tapped that rear end and brought this thing to an end. But kind of giving that suspect that, looking in the rearview mirror and you just see that cruiser right there, it's kind of like one of those, hey, we are right here. We're going to bring this thing to an end. That officer right there clearly one of the pit maneuver approved officers, but it also look at the difference in that driving right now. When I'm looking at SkyFOX, they got the speedometer up and running correct. You know, that 40-mile-an-hour window, that's pretty much the maximum where they're going to do that type of pit maneuver. And he kind of bumped it up. You saw that as soon as he saw that officer was right there, he kind of bumped it up. But you can see that they're definitely going to try to make that attempt. They're going to bring this thing to an end before that vehicle runs out of gas or anything like that. If he gets on the freeway, see, this is what I'm worried about right there. That's the 110. If he gets on the freeway, that's going to change the whole dynamic. Even though we have seen in the past, pit maneuvers on the freeway. Oops, green light. And see, this is one of the things, too. The lights and sirens is what kind of stopped all that traffic right there. And that's one of the reasons, people say, why don't they just let these people go? Or why are they not, why are they just in tracking mode? In this case, with that traffic, those lights and sirens got those people to stop. That one car actually was backing up right there to get out of the way. And that's basically alerting the public, like, hey, there's something going on, emergency vehicles coming through, and the public acting accordingly. All
right, well, we see the cruiser now speeding up behind this driver. And it is one of those things when you're out driving on the road, you have no idea that a pursuit is coming your way, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of this. You hear the lights and sirens, you hear the helicopters overhead, and it can be a jarring experience for drivers that are just trying to figure out what's going on. Sometimes you're looking at the other way, and we have seen crashes, Stu, sometimes with drivers that are being pursued, and sometimes recently we saw, a law enforcement crashing into somebody when trying to stay on top. So now we're the wrong way. This is really dangerous. People are driving on the other side of the road as he now heads and changes onto a different street here. We're now on to Vermont.
Yeah, and Vermont's also another one of these streets, very large. In this part of town, it's two directions with a huge center divider. So this is going to give that suspect that, and this is the thing, too. We haven't seen really extremely high speeds. 50 miles an hour, let's face it, anybody that's listening probably would have done that on a street that size if there was no traffic around. But now he's coming up into some more traffic. And Vermont, that's another one. There's a lot of other vehicles. And look at everybody's kind of pulling over to the side. And that's one of the positives. When a pursuit is happening, like you said, a lot of times people are just kind of like, oh, what's going on? But if you do what you're supposed to do, be predictable. That's what law enforcement wants. And, so if you hear those lights and sirens, you get over to the side of the road, and you want to get over to the right side. You don't want to go over to the left side. You want to pull over to the right, and that seems like what everybody's doing, and that is really keeping the public safe. And if an officer wasn't there, and this guy is just blowing through, or female, the suspect, just blowing through these red lights, that could end very tragically. At least those lights and sirens giving the folks the heads up. I understand this part of the area right here, and I kind of would be guessing that SkyFOX is the shot's going to get a little bit farther and farther away from them as they are in the LAX area right now, so it's going to make it very difficult. Look at him using that gore point right there, and it looks like he's just kind of waiting for that opportunity, and there he goes. He's going to run another red light out there. And, every time they do something like this, you just kind of worry that somebody is going to be just driving along, and you say that, and there's some more cars coming. He's running another red light right there. So it's just so dangerous as we're watching it make its way north here on Vermont. Through the South Los Angeles area.
Yeah, and Stu, sometimes we see those pursuits in so-called tracking mode. That's where the suspect is being pursued by the helicopter overhead, but the officers on the ground back off because they view it to be simply too dangerous. But as you're mentioning that, one of the dangers of tracking mode is those lights and sirens are not visible for other drivers to have a heads up that the pursuit is coming.
Right, and you know what? Those are one of the things that, law enforcement. These guys are trained, and we watch. I mean, let's face it. We watch what's going on. We've seen enough of them. We know we've worked with law enforcement in some facet. We know some of the boundaries, some of the rules. But it's like, who makes that decision? And whoever's doing that, that's a pay grade well above mine. And believe me, I wouldn't want that on my shoulders, because there's an officer somewhere that basically has to make a decision and say, yes, we're going to go into tracking mode. And then what happens if it ends tragically after that? I mean, it's one of those things where the officers are watching this. They're saying, okay, he's running too many red lights. He's driving too fast. Maybe we should back off. Or, some people are sitting there, well, no, you got to stay behind him. Those decisions, I couldn't even imagine making something like that, especially with people's, lives in the balance or somebody getting hurt. This is the first time we've seen him actually almost stop. At least he paused for that red light, right? And that's huge. But he's going to be moving away, and hopefully the folks in SkyFOX are going to be talking with the tower and getting that transition, as they're going to, basically they're going to have to pick up the 110 somewhere and just kind of follow northbound. And the shot's going to change, because if they stay right here, I'm kind of saying this, hopefully somebody's going to hear me there. If they stay right here, it's just going to keep going farther and farther and farther away from them. But this pursuit continuing on, and there's some opportunities out here. Take a look at that. Wide open road, no other vehicles around. They might be able to do that pit maneuver here shortly.
Right. So Alex Michelson, Stu Mundell joining us by phone. And as we approach our 5 o'clock news, Christine Devine joining our coverage as well.
Hi, Stu. Nice to talk to you. How are you?
Good afternoon. And Alex is doing an awesome job.
Yes.
Christine, good afternoon.
So we're looking at the driver here now going the wrong way there. What concerns you as you watch this pursuit? Because he's been like slowing, you said, at the red light there, but now you saw that. That was crazy there.
Yeah. And this is the thing, even the officers have to go around those vehicles that are stopping. They're doing, and this is what the officers say to all law enforcement. They say that is, if you cannot get over to the right, do something predictable, and predictable may be just stop in the roadway. I know this is probably not the pursuit answer you want to hear, but what's concerning me right now is this is getting farther and farther and farther away from SkyFOX, and, they're going to have to make that effort. Oh, look at this. We're still up here on Vermont. I don't know what that cross street is, but I can tell you they've got to be close to Manchester by now, maybe Florence, and this is a busy intersection. At least he's slowing down and kind of stopping right there, or this 73rd Street. So at least he stopped, and it's giving those officers the opportunity to block some of that cross traffic and keep the roadway clear. That one cruiser, Christine, I don't know if you watched it early on, but Alec and I, we were watching, and he really was making that attempt to do that pit maneuver. I don't know if that was just something more psychological, like we said, it's called command presence. They kind of just show up right there in your mirror, and basically are saying, hey, we're right here. We're going to bring this to an end if we can. This is the spot where SkyFOX is going to have to move around, and we actually lost the signal there for a second, but this is one of those spots where they're going to have
case rate in America. California has vaccinated more Americans than any state in America. Over 37 million doses have been administered in the state of California. Put that in perspective.